Welcome to the DIY Goalie podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. How are we doing, goalies? Welcome back to the DIY Goalie podcast presented by True North Goaltending. And I guess it's kind of a big deal around here for this episode because we have finally dropped the 0 in front of the other numbers for our episode number. We have hit number 100, which is kind of cool, kind of crazy, a little bit of a blur to, see that we've gone through 100 episodes already. So, kind of cool to see. And it also means we're only about 4 weeks out from, the 2-year anniversary, I guess, of the DIY Goalie podcast. But it's kind of crazy that it's been 100 straight weeks of episodes. Some of them have been a bit more of a scramble than others. So appreciate you guys bearing with us for, some of that. We do get pretty busy during the off season, but we are trying to plan now that we're kind of right at the tail end of our season. We are trying to plan a lot more content over this off season. So front load some podcast episodes, get some videos out for you guys, because we haven't done a whole heck of a lot of that over the last little while. So we would like to try and do that a little bit better. The other thing too, just so you guys know, just to work it better with our schedule, this will be our last podcast episode that's uploaded on a Tuesday. Moving forward, we're going to shift to Wednesdays for uploading, just because we're finding that there's sometimes, especially on stuff like long weekends, it's kind of hard to make sure that we get everything out for the Tuesday morning. So we are just going to shift to Wednesdays just to make our lives a little bit easier. So just as a heads up on that will be changing after this episode. So this one will come out on Tuesday. What is that? March 10th?
Should be 11th? March 10, yeah.
Yeah, March 10th. And then the following one will be Wednesday, March 18th. And then from there, we'll keep going on the Wednesdays. So just a little bit of an announcement there, I guess. Nothing too crazy, but Connor has gone out and reached out to the goalie community at large to try and get some more hot takes. So we have done a hot takes episode before, but it's probably been, I don't know, close to a year or so, maybe a little less. But we figured that they're fun episodes to do, so we do that for number 100 here too. So I don't know, I guess we can dive right into it. What do you got for us today, Connor? Oh, by the way, I have not seen these yet, so we'll see what gets thrown my way here. How much ranting I get to do today.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of my own fault, because I kind of ended up putting this out last minute. So thank you for the people that did decide to give me some takes. A couple of them we've already gotten before, right? Emerson's with me now because she decided she didn't want to miss out on the 100th episode of the DIY Goalie podcast presented by
She's
True North
got some
Goaltending.
hot takes from all her life experience.
Exactly. She's heard me talking about goaltending enough times that she's like, I have some things to say. Yeah. So thank you to everybody who.
Yeah.
Basically.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So thank you to everybody who reached out. Just first out, crazy that we're at 100 episodes now. That's a little wild, and it's started as just kind of an off thing for you while you were recovering, and then I bullied my way onto here, and it's been smooth sailing ever since. So
yeah, I'm 100% smooth. Yeah, this is my my creation from my hip surgery recovery, and somehow it's still going. So
just crazy that it's that we're at 100 episodes now. So yes, I guess. Okay, so I'm going
Actually,
to
before you continue, I think we need to do this.
We need to upgrade that. Um, that's funny. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So, again, like I said, thank you to everybody who's reached out to us here. People who did reach out, did say that they didn't mind, being the ones credited. I think I am just gonna keep everything just anonymous today. But again, just for those who did reach out, and when you're listening back again, just thank you. So let's start with this. So this one says how to get out of your head when you've been on the lowest tier 4 years in a row. Everyone comes to you after tiering and to your kids saying that they do not deserve to be there. Literally, others can see the politics. So I think what this person's getting at is that they've been mistiered. For those who are in tiering, they've been mistiered for the last obviously 4 years, and so just everybody and their dog can see that you know hey, you're not at the level that you're supposed to be at. Um, and unfortunately you keep getting the short end of the stick. I've personally been there myself. Unfortunately, hockey politics do play a huge part in it, and it's so to me it's my me and my family, we had decided to make the decision to jump ship from that organization and move over to a different organization where I was able to not only play with my friends, but I was also able to be tiered properly and play at the level that I was supposed to be playing at. So I don't know if this is necessarily something of a hot take, but I think it was definitely, definitely something more of just a talking point here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like more of a Q&A episode question, but that's okay because
Yeah.
we can definitely mix in some of that too. But um, fortunately, I never have been in a spot where I was mistiered. However, I was cut from a team that I shouldn't have been. Luckily, I made another organization within like 2 or 3 days because the organization that cut me 4 days before the start of the season. Um, and that turned out to be one of the best things that happened to me for my career. But when it comes to the mistiering, I know it's happened. There's some goalies that we train that, we've gotten emails about from parents that are kind of panicky. And when they mention the tier that the goalie made, it leaves you scratching your head because like working with them that they're at a much higher level than where they were placed. Now, I get sometimes things happen like injuries and illness and whatnot. So there could be some of that, depending on how the tryouts are structured. If you have a bad weekend, that could potentially, sink the rest of your season, which is unfortunate. But if it is something that's due to politics, and if you do truly feel like there are issues, start by kind of reaching out to higher up in the organization. If that doesn't go anywhere and you still really believe that there was an egregious error, there is a process to go through with whatever your governing body is most of the time. I know for sure, like here with Hockey Alberta, there's, kind of a process that you can go, you fill out a form and kind of escalate that up through Hockey Alberta. And I imagine that there's a lot of that at other governing bodies as well. Um, I guess if you're on the unsanctioned side, you might be a little bit more SOL, but you could potentially reach out to the league that you're working with and kind of talk to them there. But that one might be a little bit tougher to do. But that being said, if it is one of those things that you do end up stuck there, even after going through the processes, there's still ways to make the best out of that situation, and you can still use the ice time to develop. And if you can frame your mindset to kind of have the prove everyone wrong type of mindset, it can kind of be a bit of a motivator moving forward. So I think if you frame it the right way, it although isn't ideal, it doesn't have to be a complete write off of a season. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we may have touched on it before in another podcast, but just just like I said, just like I've been in that situation. It sucks. And so it's a matter of just kind of how you handle that from there. Obviously you don't want to burn bridges per se, because definitely like the hockey community is small enough already, and word of mouth can travel fast. So you need to approach it, less with emotion and more with practicality, right? What's going to be the best move or best decision for you kid, is, do you ride out this last year playing tier whatever tier, let's say tier 5 as a nice round number, hockey, and then do you make the jump from playing with organization A over to organization B, at least in the the hockey Alberta, kind of reference it to Edmonton Minor Hockey Stream, or do you um transition, make that mid-season transition of, hey, I'm moving over to this now because that's what we're doing essentially, and that's what my family did, is after my pee-wee year, we had decided to make the transition from organization A to organization B, and ended up playing in a tier and a level that supposed to properly play in. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. What else you got?
All right. I do want to jump into this one here, and we've touched on it a little bit, but I think where this person's going with this is interesting. So this one says coaches slash parents who don't cut their kids' goalie stick to size are doing their goalie a disservice. There's no such thing as throwing off the balance of the stick. In relation to this, is that goalies should start learning to play the puck in U9, so basically right from the get-go. It's a super useful skill, and goalies who do it well stand out and are more valuable to their team.
Okay. So I am fully on board with the cutting of the stick. I actually did find I I went through an experimentation phase in junior where I tried almost every length on this one stick. Like literally went down to the point that like there is maybe like a blocker length above like where my blocker was sitting. So not a width, but like a blocker length. So it was pretty close to my hand. That one I found was a little too much. That's kind of where I found the line was. But a little longer than that was still quite short. But what I did find was, yes, it did make playing the puck a lot easier. And I did find too, like, it was a little easier to control, um, like where the puck went to, like being able to kind of steer my stick a little bit and stuff. It did seem a little bit easier to control as well, like on saves. I know we've talked about this in kind of previous equipment episodes and how it's kind of a myth that there's, a built-in balance point and the shaft has to stay as long as it is. Um, the biggest thing though with stick sizing is like, and we get this all the time. Oh, his stick seemed too small, so we went up a size. But can you look at it? And then we look at it, and it's like, no, this size is way too big. There's still that mentality as to where the stick sits when goalies are standing, but we want to size the stick more so for the butterfly. So I don't know how many young goalies, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, Connor, but how many young goalies we see with their hand basically up beside their face because their stick is so long. So that's one thing to think of too, is size your stick for the butterfly. And then I think what you were kind of touching on, Connor, was um, the puck playing as kind of the hot take, and making sure that, or I guess not making sure, but like introducing that skill set to younger goalies. And I've for one, am all on board with that on kind of very basic introduction right from the get-go on puck playing, even if it's just something as simple as being able to make like a 2 or 3 foot pass accurately. Is it one of the skills that we're going to really focus on? No. But is it one that you can kind of introduce and get them to fool around a bit? 100%. And if you kind of introduce it early enough and they get comfortable enough with it, they're probably more likely to work on that stuff on their own. Because I know plenty of goalies that just love to shoot, and that's all they like to do. But yeah, I agree with that part too. Emerson's got some things to say as well. So
When I go and edit this, she'll be muted, so you guys won't hear it. But not only does she disagree with you, Nathan, she's trying to destroy my set here. So
that's
um,
okay. She's trying to kick
she
you off the pod too, hey? She's in cahoots with me.
yeah, and this is like this has been a hot button topic for the last few years now, like especially when I stopped playing. Um, I'm okay with cutting the stick, not necessarily to the point of balance, but kind of what you were talking about already is that when it comes to goalie sizing, it's more so sizing for the butterfly, for the paddle, right? That's the biggest thing there. So if you're taking off a couple of inches, maybe not the end of the world, because there's really no in between size, for goalie sticks. If you're going from a 23-inch paddle to a 24, there's no 23.2, 23.6, or anything along those lines. It's just you're going from one number to the next, essentially. So, I mean, the problem with cutting the stick, though, in the same breath, is just the paddle sizing over anything. Now, would you be so bold to say is that do you shave down the paddle a little bit? Like we've seen goalie sticks, where I don't have mine in front of me, or nor do I have like one of those replica mini sticks, but we've seen it or we've seen goalies where they shave down the edges, they shave down the corners where the paddle meets the shaft, essentially. So do you do something like that instead? I don't disagree with it. I don't love it either, because goalie sticks are pretty enough already. Why mess with them? But you need, so as I will never ever recommend goalie equipment or goalie stick sizing. I will put my input out there and be like, hey, I think that this 25-inch stick is a little too large. I would recommend going to see, I always recommend, my former goalie partner here in the Edmonton area, Jacob Musselman, who works at United Cycle. So I'll always refer people to him. I really got to get a referral code from him at this point. But, I will always do that, because I am personally not comfortable with recommending, goalie equipment sizes and goalie equipment, stuff like that. But if it's definitely something egregious, where we see, like the kid's blocker hand is basically elbows up in the air there, yeah, definitely something that I'll call out and be like, hey, we have to address this. I will always leave the equipment related stuff to equipment expert people, such as the salespeople, at hockey shops and whatever else. BC, is very very lucky to have the guys over at the hockey shop. But again, we have United Cycle here as well in the Edmonton area. Um, yeah, so I don't know if it's necessarily, do you look at cutting down the shaft? I think more so, do you look at shaving down the paddle instead? With that being said, though, when it comes to the playing the puck stuff, I have a hard stance on this, and I say, I'm not personally worried about playing the puck so much. Number one, because I can't play the puck worth the life of me. Um, but I don't. To me, I think that there are more important skills to be focusing on first over playing the puck, especially at the younger levels. But I will say, do you look at um you know the the different types of streams, I guess. And so what I'm referring to is, at the U9 level, definitely U7 level, but definitely U9 level, am I worried about it so much? No, not really. At the U11 level, in the main community stream, maybe not so much. In the elite stream, okay, maybe you touch on it a little bit. um my thing is just like, do we want goalies to be comfortable, in how to handle the stick properly when they go to play it like a regular player? Sure, absolutely. Can you not destroy my set, please? As well as, you know but again, just like I said, like I'm worried about other skill sets and other assets of playing goalie before playing the puck. So I'm not dead set against it, but I'm not a huge proponent of it either.
Here's a very old man take. I don't know. Can you, like, with the composite sticks these days? Can you even shave down the paddle? Really? Like, I don't know, because I only ever really use foam
I don't
core. So
think so. I don't, because there's a lot of inner workings in there, right? With the um because I think some of them still have like foam cores and a few other things in there. So maybe not, but
yeah.
that's the way that I would look at it versus taking down a few centimeters of the shaft. So
Yeah. So in that case, that to me is all personal preference. Like, again, I don't know how much of the new modern composite sticks can get cut at the paddle. But there are kind of starting to be custom options now for trigger grips if that's the route you want to go to. But yeah, I mean, that's an option. Like, again, that's tailored towards personal preference. I did have a stick that was like the very steep, um, I don't know, corners of the paddle, I guess, as opposed to like the more standard. Like, it came very sharply down, and I did not like that at all. I liked kind of having a little bit more to hold on to, but I'm sure there's lots of goalies that like the more narrow one. In terms of the puck playing though, like, I think there's a way you can do it for the younger ones to still be beneficial. Like, to me, you can almost run it as part of a bigger drill. Like, you can add a pass component, whether it's in the middle of skating or whether it's in, like before getting a shot or something like that. I do think there's ways that you can introduce it, and I do think it is a skill set that is good to introduce early, but not to focus on. Like you said, there are bigger fish to fry. Um, you know, if you're working strictly on puck handling and you have a goalie that can't even butterfly yet or has no idea what tracking a puck is, then yes, our priorities are a little skewed there. But I do think having the odd drill mix in a pass or two might not be the end of the world. The other thing you can do too is if you're out with a team that has two goalies, you can set up a drill where the other goalie has to give the coach a short pass before a shot as well. And then they're getting some touches in as opposed to, and not really taking away from working on the other stuff as well. So I do think there's creative ways you can kind of mix that in a little bit and still kind of be beneficial. So I think Emerson's got a question next or a hot take next again.
yeah, I think her hot take is that this is boring. Why am I here? You know, I wanna
Yeah.
I wanna I wanna go
Chords. I want
play.
to pull that.
Yeah, yeah, basically. Um, my hot take for you is that I don't want you to be a goalie. She probably will. Let's be real. Okay, so these next three here, they're kind of all related in a way. Um, but I want to start with, which one do I want to start with here? They're all to me pretty good. Um, okay, let's start with this one. So this one says hot take. not all, but a large majority of youth under 12 team practices can actually be detrimental to a goalie. Coaches who don't watch or enforce shot attempts, causing desperation saves more than set quality reps. In addition, in some cases, they could even be downright dangerous with kids shooting at the same time because one player is still finishing a drill. Many drills are also designed as odd man Russians or breakaways versus full ice set plays, transitions, comparable to a game that is 80-20 odd man versus set zone time, from what I've seen, versus realistic gameplay, which is more 20-80 or 30-70. While it's understandable not to have a goalie expert on the ice at all times, teams often don't even offer this except as a once a week goalie only practice. It's difficult to create good habits in practice because they aren't at all made up with the goalies in mind. Again, all understandable, but something that is rarely talked about at the younger goalie ages. Goalies that have an advantage are the ones who happen to have a parent coach who was a goalie, or a parent who can pay for a goalie coach on the ice over and above the team fees of the team, usually at $75 a practice of where this person is. So quite a bit in this one, and I think definitely some that maybe we have touched on before, but um, like this guy was hot about it. I'll tell you that much. But
Can, can
yeah,
I go even hotter?
well, lay it on us.
Um, I'll take that a step further and say that it's not even the majority of 12U practices. It's just the majority of practices out there. Um, so hate to break it to you, but it's probably not going to get better as you keep going through the ranks. Apologies for that. But yeah, that's something that we've been championing over here for a long time. I need to get my butt in gear and put together a coach's course. I have scripts, I just haven't videoed anything. But yeah, I think the biggest downfall of the goaltending position is that there's not enough of a push from the people that can make the push to try and get at least one coach on each team with a basic knowledge of goaltending. And also, I I don't know. There's better ways to do it, I think, from these governing bodies as to how to get proper drills and practice plans out there as well for goalies. Like, but I'm talking about like team practice drills that are also goalie friendly. And I think there's not enough emphasis on that. Um, and the funny thing that I find too is when coaches run goalie friendly practices or goalie friendly drills, a lot of times it actually will make their players better too. Like when I played, the guys that I found could not hit the net whatsoever in a game were the guys that were always 2 feet in front of the net when they shot in practice. If you want your guys to be more accurate, get them to shoot one step inside the blue line and try and hit the net. If it's only for the first drill or two to get the goalies into it more, it still helps your players be able to be more accurate from all over the ice. Same thing with when we run in tight areas or game situation stuff. That's better for your players too. They get more touches. Having some more game like situations like traffic in front is also good for your players to get used to getting in front of the net, trying to tip a puck, trying to screen the goalies, right? Trying to fight for rebounds. Letting rebounds play out until the goalie covers it or until they score, depending on the drill. That's a good thing too. Maybe not for like a 4-on-0 in front of the net, but if you have like, you know, a box out drill where you've got 2 defenders and 2 players in front and the D are trying to box out the forwards, let them play it out. See what happens. Get your goalies moving in a game like situation. It also helps your D to clear the net. It helps your forwards to try and battle for that puck. So these sorts of things, I find it funny because these sorts of things are good for player development as well and goalie development. So it kind of does baffle me that this sort of stuff doesn't happen more often just because it's good for players too. Like, how many kids do we see nowadays that have such a good skill set in terms of being able to stick handle in a phone booth or being able to, Michigan 12 times in a row or whatever the case is. But then you put them out in a game and they're lost because they have no idea what they need to do, where they need to go. They can't hit the net from the tops of the circles. They don't know how to drive for a rebound or box out for a rebound or whatever the case is. And it's because they don't get work on these skill sets in practice, and working on those skill sets make it a more friendly environment for your goalies. So that's kind of my little rant and hot take on that. But I do think that's the biggest downfall for goaltending in hockey, is just the fact that we don't have enough people that know the basics of goaltending, and we don't have enough resources out there for team practices and goalie sessions in terms of proper drills and what to do and practice plans and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, you hit the nail on the head on that one. Um, I think though that, to play devil's advocate, really, and I might lose my goalie union card here. Um, I
We're gonna
think
censor
though,
you here.
GBI, open up. Um, um, I think though, in the same breath, for us as goalies, we have to be adaptable. And so sometimes, where the drills that we are in that are less favorable for us, we still have to find a way to, um, make the most out of it. So, I mean, like, if you're getting two shots, happening at the same time, yeah, obviously, not going to be the case. So we just need to pick a puck, essentially, right? And then if one of those dummies decides to, and ends up accidentally hurting us, it'll be dealt with as it is. um because sometimes though in a game, and even sometimes like when I've had one-on-one sessions or even just sessions in general, um sometimes the drill doesn't go exactly according to plan, or sometimes the shot doesn't go where I want it to go, and then the goalie gets scored on and they're like, well, I thought you were shooting here, and I'm like, well, yeah, I was trying to, but sometimes the shot isn't going to go where you want it to. So we still have to adapt, we still have to adjust, we still have to you know go back to goalie instinct, go back to goalie basics and goalie instincts, and be like, puck come, me stop puck, like, stuff like that, right? It's not always going, can you not please, it's not always going to be um sunshine and rainbows, and it's not always going to be designed perfectly for us, or it's not always going to be how we envisioned it all the time. So I think, in a perfect world, where I've said it before in podcasts, in my perfect world, every team has a dedicated goalie coach, and all that stuff. Unfortunately, not the case. And even with the resources as limited as they are that are out there, um it's still an uphill battle. But I think even in the greater grand scheme of things, where a lot of practices nowadays are more so designed for skill development and not necessarily so much focused on team play, and we see that happening more and more in the bigger levels, or the upper levels in hockey. Team Canada, both, well, I wouldn't say on the men's side so much, but definitely on the World Junior side is more of a better example, with not even really a lot of individual play, but you see a little bit more individualism out there rather than team stuff. So I think, just practices in general and how we approach them need a revamp. But in the same breath too, we as goalies have to understand that it's not always going to be, the way that we want it to, but we still have to try and find a way to make the most of it as we can.
Yeah. Ian Gordon said it, the embrace the development mindset, right? Every opportunity is an opportunity to get better. That being said, like if we are getting to the point that you're getting two shots at the same time frequently and, players are potentially hitting you when you're not looking at the puck, the best way to send a message, and I don't know, maybe I'll get some flack for this, but the best way to send a message is if you have two guys coming down at the same time, both with the puck, literally just skate out of the net. Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add. I don't know if you got more there or if you want to hop into the next one.
No, I think I think we're okay here. We have 3 more left, so we're gonna try and we're gonna try and get through these as best as we can. Um, this one here, I had to get a little bit of clarification on because this one I think I don't think we really touched on a whole lot. Says my hot take is there needs to be a basics info sheet on how a coach should shoot on a goalie in practice in the coach's handbook or posted on association websites. It kills me to see a U11 or U9 kid get shots ripped at them from 10 inches away. Let's get the kids time to track the puck, make the proper movement on those warm-ups. So I did get some clarification on it, and I was asking, like, are we talking about coaches shooting on goalies during warm-ups, or like what are what's going on here? So he did say to not get him started, but did say that kids will be kids, especially in the lower tiers, but primarily coaches, the volunteer dad that gets quote unquote stuck with the goalies and just shoots on them while the skaters are doing power skating. In the city that he's in, that they have a lot of shared ice. So he's watched other coaches just doing basic glove and basic blocker saves. They are way too close for the U11s to make it help for their development.
Yeah. Okay. So that does tie in a little bit to the last one, and I think you had said that there was three that were kind of similar. So the next
Yeah,
one.
they're all kind of similar, but
Okay.
I know this third one that I have here is kind of a little bit on its own, but
Okay. So, um, yes, and that I think ties back into more of the education piece, right? Just um, getting these coaches on board with what's proper for goalies. Like, I can guarantee there are people out there that think that um, the harder I shoot, the better it's going to make the goalie. And technically, to a certain extent, I guess that thinking has a little bit of merit, but there's a line to that. Like, if you're at the point that we're just ripping it by, a 9-year old with, your 80-mile-an-hour beer league clapper, yeah, it's probably not doing much for your goalie. So there is a fine line there. I do agree that it again just kind of comes back to that educational piece, right? Just to be like, hey, we need at least at the start of practice to be shooting maybe tops of the circles so the goalies have enough time to track. And then try your best to be age appropriate. I know it's tough. Like when I first started coaching, trying to be accurate with my flick shots for the younger goalies was like impossible. Now I'm in an okay spot with it, but still like I'm, 25 years past on my player skills and they're they're not the best. But yeah, there is a bit of an awareness piece there, understanding how hard you need to shoot for the goalie you're working with. I do know, and I'm pretty sure most goalies out there have a similar situation. Like I do know when I was younger, I got a few bruises from coaches, even though they'd hit my chest protector, just because my stuff's, meant for 11-year-old shots, not 31-year-old shots or whatever the case is. Um, so, that is something that, yes, I think is important. But I also do think, on the other hand, that it isn't as common Like I don't see it very much anymore. Like I think it's something that used to be more common. So some of the more old school coaches might still be doing this, or just people that really don't understand anything at all related to goaltending, and are just thinking that they're quote unquote toughening up their goalie, or making it harder for them to make the save so they get better. I find a good approach is to assume good intentions, because most of the time people have good intentions, right? I think most coaches want their goalies to get better. They just don't know how to do it. So they're basically just, you know, doing what they know is best to try and get goalies better, whether that's ripping shots at them, whether that's telling them to stand up more, or telling them to come out more. Yes, they're probably completely wrong, but in their mind, they think that they're doing the right thing. And I think going into it with that approach, as opposed to thinking that people are malintentioned and just out there to hurt your kid, might be a better way to go, especially if you have to approach a coach to talk to them. Just say, hey, I know you're trying to help, but this isn't helping. Can we find another solution?
Yeah. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, Emerson is um she's just causing chaos over
Very
here.
alert.
Yes. For being now 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I mean, eh, most parent coaches or parents or coaches that get stuck with the goalies, some, not all, but some are pretty receptive of, you know, hey, you're shooting a little too close. Could you, back it up, a few inches or a few feet or whatever. Um, most of the ones that that I've been out with, I'm like they've been pretty good, mind you. I'm also the goalie guy, so they're also listening to what I'm saying. Um, but like even on a couple teams that I've been on, that I've played on, where and my dad used to be the goalie coach for the longest time for me, but then he took on more of a head coaching role in my later years. So the one parent, or the one assistant coach that I would have while there's practice, or the players are doing their own thing down at one end, goalies would be down the other, and I'd be like, hey, here's where I want you, because this is what I want to work on, down at this end. And most coaches are pretty receptive to that. Again, it's a matter of just how you come and approach it as well. Thankfully, though, at True North, if you go to TrueNorthGoaltending.com, we do have all of our drills posted there. And so we do
Not
have
all of
we
them. I need to
not
get
not
better
all of
job
them, no, but
updating.
we do have a good chunk of them that are available in our kind of beginner level practices, so there should be something there to take. And whether it's something as simple as goalie going from post top of the crease back to the other post, stuff like that, but at least it's still working on something, right? And you have a rough idea of where you of where the shooter needs to be. And um lost my train of thought, but that's the general idea, right? um yeah, I don't know where else really you can go further with that. Like Nathan was saying, we are coming up with a, not a handbook, but like a coach's guide or something,
Like
that
a course. Yeah.
course, yeah, that does kind of address this. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right, so this one is actually from a dad whose son is out with us every Monday at our organization skates, which I wanted to talk with you after pod. Um, so this one, he talks about, you know, blurring the roles, or the blurring roles of dad versus coach. So this one talks about a couple things that come in mind for me are the blurring roles of dad versus coach, supporting young goalies after a tough game, helping with the mental aspect of the pressure they feel, and how best to keep it fun for young goalies. I can think, I can't think of a bit more ideas too, but this is just kind of what he has, what he sent me here. So I wanted to more so focus on the blurring roles of dad versus coach, and I know that, and because you're dealing with this real time, right? With with your oldest son Hayden, um, and his venture into goaltending. So, in your very small sample size of what you have so far, because Hayden's what, in his second year of hockey?
Yeah, he's only 6. He's second
Yes.
year U7.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah. So just how have you been approaching this?
yeah,
What tips
so
can you give me?
yeah, a little bit of context here. Yes, Hayden is only 6, and yes, he is playing spring hockey this year as a goalie. The reason we are doing that is because he has been nonstop bugging us. I'm sure it's because dad was a goalie, and him and his brother come to the facility sometimes when I am running sessions, and they get to see the goalies and all that. So definitely does make like he's just around it a lot. So he keeps bugging. So we thought spring hockey would be a good thing to try, to see if he liked the position. So that's why we're doing that. Um, what I find, at least right now, is when we do the odd facility session to kind of get him some skills and whatever, we usually only go for like 20 or 30 minutes at a time. Um, I will tell him things, and I get a lot of, I know, dad, even though it's like something we've never talked about before. However, what I do find is then he does go out and actually implements the adjustments. So he just basically has to
that's
throw in the
that's
sass
rare.
at
That's
the time.
so rare.
Not all the time, obviously, but I mean, what kid is 100%, you know, paying attention and whatever, and he's 6. Um, so as of so far, and it's still very new into the goalie dad side of things. So far, it hasn't really been too much of an issue. Um, but I have kind of talked to him as well and have just said, hey, I do know what I am talking about when it comes to goaltending, and I will help you however much you want me to help you. Understand that when we're out there, I'm coming at it more from the coach side as opposed to the dad side. And then kind of after the fact is more of the dad stuff. So I haven't gotten to the point with him yet, obviously, that we've had any sort of like crises. Like he hasn't had a very bad game that's really put him down or anything yet. He's played in one little day long tournament as a goalie, and was just happy to be there. So we haven't had to really deal with the downswings yet. So I don't have any input on that side yet because I do have tools I can use, but that's going to be one I think that I'm going to struggle with is how much do I do coach and how much do I do dad. Um, but I think the biggest thing is just keeping that line of communication open, um, and just being like, hey, I'm here to help as best as I can. And, almost like when you get on the ice, the dad hat is left on the bench and you put the coach hat on kind of thing. And coming at it from that approach. The other thing, too, though, is I think being open with your kid about wanting them to be honest if you're being too involved, and then if they do tell you that, then we back off a little bit and give them some space. I think that's kind of important to maintain that healthy relationship as well, because at the end of the day, like, hockey's fun, hockey's a sport, but we'd much rather have that long lasting relationship of like dad and kid, um, as opposed to kind of like we hear so many stories of, people resenting their parents because of how hard they push them for stuff like hockey, right? So I think just that open line of communication, being able to kind of distinguish between the two, based on certain situations, like even tell your goalie to come to you and be like, I need coach right now, or I need dad right now, or whatever, and kind of have that, um, that distinction. And yeah, I just think being supportive, doing what you can to help them develop, but also understand where your limitations are and have them communicate to you if you're being a little too overbearing for them or whatever, and being able to take that feedback and actually apply it. I think that's kind of the best way to approach it. Um, and yeah, it's going to be different for everybody's situation. So you just kind of gotta, you know, roll with the punches as best as what works for you guys.
I'll cut this part.
Did you write any notes for that or what?
Yeah, let me just pull out my entire logbook here. Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I'm not in that boat yet. Hopefully, won't have to be. But if you guys recall the episode, and I think we might have touched on it, but the episode that I did with my dad, where we touched on a lot of different things, and I think one of them was kind of the role between goalie parent and goalie coach, or coach rather, on the team. We are almost at the end. We're almost at the end. Can you figure it out for next 20 minutes? Please?
Not even that, because Hayden has a practice at 10, so.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna start from the beginning. Yeah. Thankfully I'm not in that boat yet. Hopefully I don't have to be, but I think the thing, that I look at it is, if you guys recall the episode, and I think we touched on it in this episode, but if you guys recall the episode that I did with my dad, right? And I think we touched on, the role of goalie parent versus goalie coach. I'm thankful enough to have had my dad as the head coach of the team, so I don't think we really had to worry about a whole lot of the the goalie coach or the goalie parent side of things. Definitely, like the car rides home, though, I think I was probably a little more blessed than others, where it wasn't like I was being torn apart in the car ride home. It's like I'd ask dad, like, hey, like, what'd you think, and he was constructive with it, like, oh, I think you would have liked to have have had the third one back, but all in all, like, you played okay, you played all right. It wasn't like you sucked, the team lost because of you, or I expect goals against average of 1 or whatever, right? So I think it's easier said than done to have those roles separate. But if you are in that boat where you are a dad of a goalie and you are the coach of said goalies on the team, you need to approach it more, I would say, as hit off of like touch on a couple of quick points, like, hey, get your gloves up, hey, track down on the pucks, without going so much into lecture mode. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like that's the way that, like, I would approach it so much. I don't know, I'm not in that boat, so I can't really say, just, but I know of goalie parents who yeah, they're overbearing, and they just need to take a back seat a little bit. Just want to just try and take the emotion out of it, as best as you can. um, but I definitely think, just like little quick hits. Hey, get your stick on the ice. Hey, bend your knees. Hey, gloves off your body, without going so much into the, oh, here's why we're doing this, or here's the reason, or here's what you're doing, like here's an essay of what you're doing wrong. That's my job. That's Nathan's job. That's the goalie coach's job, is to do the analyzing. Such the role as the goalie parent, who may be more so a coach on the team, is more so just to, I would say, touch on the quick hits, touch on the quick points, touch on the more easier things, that can be addressed. You know what I mean? You know what I'm driving at? That's just the way that I would look at it over anything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that sums it up pretty good. What do you got for the last one for us?
So the last one, I think, touches on, this one we kind of already touched on already earlier in the episode, but we can touch on it again here. This one talks about, with tryouts coming up, which I don't know how tryouts are coming up, because we're
Well,
all
there's
at the end of the
ID
season here.
skates. There's
I
ID
I
skates, and
I guess.
I think Ontario might do tryouts around now more so than Alberta does, but could be
Well,
wrong.
Ontario also has the open borders thing as well, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. Um, so she talks about, tryouts coming up, choosing where to try out. Do you go somewhere where you will get more play, or play the high? So hold on. Do you go somewhere where you will get more play, or play the highest level you can, even if you see less ice time?
Yeah. Okay. It entirely depends. So, in general, more ice time is usually better development. However, it also depends on what you get for goalie specific development. So if that higher level team has a coach coming out, once a week, or maybe even has a coach on staff that's out every practice, and the lower level team doesn't, even if you're not getting as much game time, you might end up with more development over the course of the season. Um, the other thing to think of too is how much of a drop down is that next level, right? Like if it's AAA to AA, you can still make quite a good career out of having a couple of years playing AA. And you can still get quite a bit better playing AA. So, if that's the case, if all things are equal, then yes, maybe the playing time is a little bit better. Um, the other thing, I guess, too, is think of fit in terms of travel, in terms of frequency of skates, in terms of who the coach is, all of that stuff. Like, go with the best fit for you and where you think your goalie might flourish a little bit better, or be able to get a little bit more development. So, kind of a few things to weigh there. It's going to be very situational. Um, but yeah, look at it less of a game time thing, like gameplay thing, and look at it more of like an overall development thing, and kind of, because that higher level might have more ice time in general than the lower level does, even if the lower level you might get more game time. And again, too, you might get much better goalie specific development at the higher level, although you could get more goalie specific development at the lower level too. That's something to look at too. Like, you don't know, maybe the other goalie on that lower level team, his dad is a goalie coach or something like that. You just never know, right? So that would be my thing, is kind of weigh the whole situation. Don't strictly look at game time necessarily, but just kind of the development as a whole.
Um, yeah, I'm in that same boat as well. um, the biggest biggest thing is that you don't want to go chasing, or you don't want to get caught up in like, oh, you should come here because, everybody else is going there, or, oh, you should come here because it's, best program in the province or state or wherever it is that you guys are at. You want to look at, like, definitely, like, the reviews help, but you want to look at the, just kind of the overarching thing is, like, how, like Nathan was saying, how often is, the development, who's doing the development, and just really just kind of ask questions about, what to expect, or what to get out, or what to get out of, or what you want to see you get yourself getting out of with your child in hockey, um and just going at it from there, essentially. So it all has its ups and downs, but it's more so just about, not only just kind of what the program has to offer, but it's also just, where does your goalie, where does your athlete want to play to in the same breath, right? So that's the that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really have anything else. I don't know if you do or if we're good to wrap up.
No, I think we're I think we're good as well. Just thank you to everybody for, submitting your thoughts, submitting your hot takes. Really appreciate it, and just thank you guys again for 100 episodes. It's nuts to be here, and then 4 episodes later we'll be 2 years into this thing. So that'll be wild. But that'll do it for us on the DIY Goalie podcast presented by True North Goaltending. If you are watching over on the YouTube side of things, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button. The more goalies that we're able to bring together, the better, along with the share button. If you are listening on your favorite podcasting platforms, whether that's Apple, iHeart, or Spotify, hit the follow button. If you're new, hit the share button if you are a returning listener. Go follow us on our social media platforms, all at truenorthgoaltending.com, except on Instagram, because we like to be different. That one is YEG Goalie Coach. You can follow myself on Instagram at MondayGC. Go check us out, truenorthgoaltending.com. We have a whole bunch of camps and such available still. We offer ringette camps this year. We have our week-long goalie camp in middle of August, and we also have like a beginner goalie camp early in August as well. So if you are in the Edmonton area, go check that out. But also, if you do happen to find yourself in the Edmonton area, and if you want to book a session with us, truenorthgoaltending.com, you can hit book online, and you can choose whichever coach that we do have on staff to be able to go and do that. I got nothing else. On behalf of myself and Nathan Park and Emerson Monday, this has been the DIY Goalie podcast presented by True North Goaltending. I'm getting beat up. Make some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.